Well, the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Season Series is over for 2017. Martin Truex Jr. wins his first championship and will wrap up his win at Homestead. And the decision by the Kyle Busch number 18 team that made it that much more easier for Martin Truex Jr. to take home the championship. So we'll do that and much more as Prime Sports NASCAR on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Monday the 20th of November, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma, and thanks for tuning in to the last Prime Sports NASCAR show of the season as we start talking 2018 before too long. No more Dale Earnhardt Jr., and actually there's no more a lot of good drivers. So that'll give us a whole lot to talk about. But first, let's wrap up the 2017 season after Martin Truex Jr. captured the championship. Welcome in CJ Radoon, first to the program. And CJ, what did you think about the race yesterday?
Interesting, wasn't it?
Interesting? Is that a nice way of saying you were unentertained? Or I don't know.
I was completely unentertained, to be honest with you. I expected a little bit more drama. I expected a little bit more cutting edge. I was a little bit disappointed throughout the afternoon. We talked a couple of times leading up into this race that I just didn't think that, Truex and team had the edge of having to be a little bit more aggressive than some of the other drivers throughout the season. And unfortunately, we didn't see that edge out of, I don't think, any of them, to be honest with you, throughout all of yesterday's race. And, it is not to take anything away from him. It's a fantastic achievement. He's had an incredible season. He drove a fantastic race, and it's entirely fitting that he walks away as the champion.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I welcome in Eric Smith, motorsports editor at racereviewonline.com, Eric, that I think the Martin Truex team, they took advantage of whatever changes that NASCAR made to the car at the beginning of the season. They took advantage of it on these types of tracks, and they cruised to many boring victories because of it. We had another boring win yesterday. Kyle Larson was charging hard with about 10, 15 laps to go. Kyle Busch right on Martin Truex's rear, and neither of them could pass him. This is what's going on with the car. These cars can't pass the front. And more power to Martin Truex and that team for figuring out a way to make sure that their car was the best car. The way that NASCAR set it up, they kicked ass with making sure that car was in primal position in order to take advantage of the changes, and they deserve the championship. We know it.
Yeah, he definitely earned it. It was something where I feel like 2017 was more of changing, adapting to this new format, new stage points, playoff points, and they clearly did it the best. As far as the passing, it was definitely difficult. But I also would like to see a change here. I don't know how they can do it, when they can do it, but Kyle Larson clearly had the better car yesterday, and from everything it looked, he ran him down. He got up the Kyle Busch's bumper, and from what I saw, data I saw, he had the better car and he was lifting. It's like he was not trying to be part of the championship per se. And that's where I have a little bit of a problem with this format is here's the better car that clearly should have won that race. He got to Kyle Busch's bumper countless times, but he never made the pass.
Too.
Yeah, and you could tell he wasn't trying to. He's like tiptoeing around him, and I get it. You don't want to be part of the story of wrecking a championship for a driver, but then again, we have a race where the best car didn't win, and it was almost by intent. Like, he didn't want to win. He didn't want to make the mistake by trying to pass, and what's that say about these cars and about your racing, that you got a driver that's so fearful of passing somebody because he's afraid he's going to wreck them. What happened to just pure speed win? Because he should have won, and I feel like that's a disservice to maybe his fans out there and the sponsors, that DC Solar and Credit One Bank that was on that car. That yes, he got some TV time because he was running up front with 3, but he didn't win and he should have won. And to me, that's the biggest problem I think with this NASCAR format. Is any other sport, you lose in the playoffs, you're done. You go home. NASCAR, they still race. It's like a consolation bracket ongoing, but they're still running in the winners bracket. It's just kind of weird.
It is, and I don't know if there's what else they can do, CJ. We've talked about an awful lot of different ideas and changes and things of that nature, but I don't know. I mean, I was even confused there for a while because of the leaderboard that NBC had. Because I'm still kind of going back and forth a little bit from watching football to NASCAR. I'm both DVRing everything, and I'm trying. So but I'm doing it in spurts. So I'm tuning into the NASCAR now for the final whatever laps, and I look up and I'm like, oh. Okay. Well, I could see that the Keselowski's in third, right behind Kyle. And all of a sudden, I see Carl Larson coming up. I go, what is he, a lap behind? How's he a lap behind? He can't be a lap behind, is he? And then I realized what they were doing. And I was like, well, I don't even see Kyle Larson. Keselowski's not third. Larson's third. I got totally confused. Well, who the heck was in first? I mean, I knew who was in first and second, but I didn't know where Kyle Larson was. I didn't know where Keselowski was. But we've talked about NBC before anyway. I think Fox should own the rights to NASCAR for the Cup Series entire season, but maybe that's another story. What do you think? What do you think NASCAR right off the bat can do to make sure the championship's a little bit more funner, a little bit more entertaining?
Yeah, like Eric said, I think this year was a year of adaptation to the new stage points format. Truex and team hit it off right out of the gate, actually, and they maintained that all throughout the season. I think you saw Brad Keselowski kind of switch his strategy, and once he got into the playoffs, to aim for those stage points, and that kind of paid off, getting him all the way through to Homestead. But it's got to be the product on the track. It's got to be the cars against each other, and Eric's exactly right. Just like you, I was confused when I was watching it too. I thought Larson was a lap down. I was kind of in between things. Came back, I'm like, really? What? How'd that happen? But then kind of figured it out after a couple laps. But exactly right. It's got to happen on the track. It's got to be these faster cars. They've got to be able to pass. They've got to be able to make strategy. And sometimes you're going to have strategy that doesn't pay off, just like Kyle Busch kind of had yesterday. But you've got to put it back in the hands of the drivers and the team. The kind of manufactured cautions, the manufactured running orders, just don't do it for me. I think Toyota's had the advantage throughout the years since kind of Joey Logano got his encumbered win. That's when we saw Ford trail off. Chevrolet's kind of been nowhere throughout the whole season. I think really what we need is kind of a balance of power, and maybe those new body types coming out in 2018 for some of the manufacturers will help do that.
What do you think, Eric? You have any particular quick fixes that you think that we could see? Because there were a lot of different things from qualifying and inspection, and by the way, have you noticed whether or not the stage that this season were there less cautions or more cautions or the same compared to last year with all the stages? Because you do wonder whether or not if there's more stages, does that also help the car out so the car doesn't wear out quicker because they're stopping more often and everybody else is stopping, and that goes against what we want to see is these cars wearing out a little bit later on in the races.
Yeah, from what I've seen, the cautions have actually gone down a little bit, but that's because NASCAR took a lot of heat from fans and drivers about, those quote-unquote NASCAR cautions that you would see that there'd be debris that you don't even see on the track, and all of a sudden a car just scrapes the wall and a yellow comes out. Well, I noticed this weekend, and I even wrote about this, that it's like their hand was totally away from the trigger button to bring out the yellow. There was only, out of the 3 races combined this weekend, there were 10 total cautions, and 6 of them were for stage breaks. So if you take those out, there's only 4 cautions across 3 races.
That's not going to do anything.
No, so that gets the field kind of strung out. And like yesterday, at one point, which could have drastically affected Kevin Harvick's championship hopes, you had a back marker, I believe it was David Starr, get into the wall, and NASCAR didn't throw the caution, and he's just throwing parts everywhere. There was literally a brake rotor sitting in the middle of turn 3, and it's just sitting in the middle of the track, and on the radios, all the drivers are getting warned from their spotter, go low, go high, just don't go in the middle. There's literally a brake rotor sitting in the middle of the track, and NASCAR didn't throw anything out. Well, Kevin Harvick hit it, and he had a hole in the lower part of his right front fender, which could have caused a big issue, which luckily or unluckily for Kyle Busch, his own brother spun not long after that and brought out a caution, and everybody came back down pit road, and they patched it for Harvick. But
yeah, that's going to cause an awkward Thanksgiving dinner for the Busch family, that's for sure.
Yeah, and what's weird is it doesn't get a lot of traction, and both won't really comment on it. But ever since the All-Star race several years ago, where those two wrecked each other, they don't really like each other, and it's really weird. And they've even kind of outspoken about it, but don't dive a little bit deeper. But I talked to Kyle at Indy this past year, and he was talking about wanting to run the Indy 500. And he almost had a deal, and he was going to do it. And I asked him about, would you lean on your brother? And he said, absolutely not. I don't really like talking to him, and my goal right now is to beat every stat of his, which he already pretty much has. But it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And from what I've heard and what I've seen, those two really just do not like each other still. And I just thought it was ironic how behind the scenes, and here his brother, he had to have known the pitch strategy that Kyle was on.
Absolutely.
They relay that. And I'm not saying there are any team orders. There's no way to prove it. I don't think there were. But Kurt Busch is also Kevin Harvick's teammate. And that was kind of a weird spin. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. Out of this whole race and this whole weekend, we haven't seen anybody really wreck or anything. And now all of a sudden, Kurt Busch, the Daytona 500 champion, spins on his own and brings out that caution. It's just really weird that their relationship with each other. And here, that's the oddest caution out of all 10 of them. Yeah, Kurt Busch.
And CJ, see, this leads me to what Adam Stevens and this game plan, or whether this was their game plan going in, or if it was, whatever. I mean, everybody can have a game plan going in, but then you have to change on the fly. I mean, nobody has one game plan. I mean, you got countless hours of prep time for a championship race to figure out plan B, C, D, and E. It was a gamble that, frankly, I don't understand why you take. See, I could understand, to tell you the truth, if any of the other three drivers took the gamble that Kyle did, except for Kyle, because I'm sorry, I thought Kyle had the best car. And why are you gambling? Why don't you just pit with everybody else, stay with everybody else? You've got the best car. I mean, say I'm wrong, but I didn't think so. I thought he had the best car.
No, you are 100% correct. Of the four that needed to take a gamble, it certainly wasn't him. He could have passed pretty much any single one of them at any given time up until that point, and he was doing all the right things. And he, Larson was probably the only car on track that he.
Yeah, Larson. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Outside the four. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And at that point, who cares? Cover the championship moves. You don't need to make a pit strategy gamble here. You've got speed on track. Everybody else has got to be doing it to catch up with you, and that's the call that they made for whatever reason. And similarly, like Eric said, it was completely odd when that car hit the wall. I guess it was Starr that was throwing the debris all over and didn't have a caution. But then even later on in the race, how many times last year, in the past 2 or 3 years, when it comes to 25 laps to go, you've got a second-place car that's closing down the leader. They just can't seem to get close enough. Does that debris caution come out? 100% of the time, except for yesterday. And I'm not saying they should have, but it was just an odd situation all around, and it was very ironic that Kurt Busch was the one that did his brother in.
Is there anything at all that can? I mean, are the people that are running the sport anything that they need or can do, or because it's a very weird situation when you compare it to all the other major sports, Eric. This is kind of like run by a family almost. And if do you have like one person that basically is the person that is making a lot of these decisions? Do they need fresh voice? What is there anything that can be done, or are we 10, 20 years away from there being really the type of changes that all the fans are hoping for? Because I mean, these are all correctable changes, but so much money involved and politicking in the sport, you just don't know if it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, luckily the France family, obviously they run it, but they haven't really been in tune running a lot lately. A guy named Brett Dewar, he's kind of running the show now.
Okay.
He's actually a really nice guy. He's a guy I've seen that's out engaging with fans. And the funny part was, so he's kind of running the sport per se.
Okay.
And you got Steve O'Donnell that kind of runs the competition.
Okay.
He's the guy up in the NASCAR hauler, kind of watching him and Mike Helton together. kind of just making sure things go smoothly during the race and guys don't get out of line. And you got David Hoot, that's kind of head of the race control that runs the race basically. And really, what's weird is all three of the guys kind of running the race in the race weekend between O'Donnell and Helton and David Hoots they're no nonsense guys, and they're kind of funny. If you're ever at a track to listen to the NASCAR channel, those guys I mean, the way they talk to some of the crews and drivers it's kind of comical. Like yesterday, like there's a back marker, and David Hoots are just like, get him off the track, park it. You need to pull in the park. Just get off my damn track. And just the way they talk to these people. But then you look at the race and it's like, you kind of police it a little bit differently how you act. But they're on the right track. I think eventually they'll get it. It's just, I like the fact that they try to not throw as many cautions yesterday, because it seemed like all three races over the weekend, the pure speed won. It wasn't like a fluke like last year where
sure
Jimmy Johnson, like CJ was saying, you'd see these fluke cautions come in. It's like a manufactured finish, and almost like it was like wrestling. Like it just seemed like it was scripted. It was, you would see, you knew it. You knew within the 20 laps to go the caution was coming out, and it just flips the whole script. Well, Sunday it just looked like it was based on pure speed. It was that's why I think you saw your two Toyotas run 1-2, because they were better than the Fords yesterday. And how fitting was it? The top three cars all year between Truex, Busch, and Larson.
Oh yeah,
they finished 1, 2, 3.
Sure.
And they led all but one lap yesterday. But
yeah.
I also thought it was a little ironic that Furniture Row and Gibbs have had their spats this year. Furniture Row gets all their equipment, cars, chassis, engine, dyno, pit crews, everything from Joe Gibbs Racing. It's pretty much like Joe Gibbs Racing does all the work all week, and then they give it over to Furniture Row, and they're beating you with what you gave them. And I just thought that was ironic that Kyle Busch, with 18 to go, and he's number 18, he takes over second place, and he had 18 laps to chase down Truex, and he couldn't get by him.
And by the way, and the reason for Joe Gibbs Racing to do that is what?
Really, what they're doing now, it's a promotion between Gibbs and Toyota. So with the way NASCAR has it set that no organization can have more than 4 cars per their team. So like Gibbs has Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Daniel Suarez, and had Kenseth, and now that will be Eric Jones. They can't go past that. So they need a satellite team, because they've got all these Toyota drivers signed that are coming up, like a Christopher Bell,
sure,
who was in the Truck Series, and now he's going to be in the Xfinity Series. Well, in a couple of years, he's going to have nowhere to go. Same way with what happened with Eric Jones. So they need that other team to kind of house him for a year.
So they make money. So Gibbs makes money off of what they do.
Pretty much. So
okay.
Basically, look at Furniture. They're kind of cheating the system. Look at Furniture Racing as 2 Joe Gibbs Racing cars. That's pretty much what it is.
Okay.
And so for a team like Furniture Row, who's an under-budget team, it helps them out. Why
sure.
would they not want to do that?
Sure.
And look what happened.
Yeah.
So you see that a lot across other teams. Stuart Haas was that way with Hendrick until they went over to Ford. Wood Brothers is that way with Penske. So it helps these underfunded teams, and it kind of, you look at Furniture Row, not only do they win the championship, they've got full funding next year for Truex's car, and Furniture Row is actually the business that Barney Visser owns. That sponsor won't be in his car once next year. They've got fully funded elsewhere, so not only are they making money, they're making even more money because he doesn't have to sponsor his own car.
All right. Well, look, this is also, I think we talked about this before, CJ. I think a quick fix here, which I don't know if we're ever going to see it. Maybe we will 20 years from now. But if you want another quick fix, and I think we started hearing, I don't know if it was Harvick or Hamilton who mentioned this, something similar, which was the money situation that we had talked about a month ago, and that is you have some sort of a salary cap situation. You also, as we've been hoping for them to do, start limiting the cars even more. There's no reason to have more than 30 cars. You know, those other 10 cars that are out there, whatever the amount is, I mean, they never do anything. All they do is go out and wreck themselves. So, I mean, you know, it's a waste of time. And I think if they could figure out a way to maybe let everybody else have a little bit of equity help, and there's some balance to the system, maybe that helps. So we don't see teams dominating every year, which nobody wants to see.
Yeah, whoever the driver was, I cannot remember who it was, but whoever just recently said that we don't need to go fast to put on a good show is exactly right. It's got to be put in the driver's hands. Perhaps you can get there through some kind of budget cap. I think you're right in terms of the field still being too big. We obviously ratcheted it down to 40 from 43, but still only 39 showed up in Homestead, and a lot of that has to do with the charter system that's in place and the way that they dole out the money and the points now. So that's helping things. They still have a couple steps to go in the right direction there. I think from a competition standpoint, given the car is a little bit more mechanical grip, a little bit less aero, maybe Chevrolet with their new body next year will kind of close the gap a little bit, and we'll see it a little bit closer. But I think those things kind of all combined, in addition to the most expensive, which would be changing out some of the tracks, bringing some road courses in, bringing some more short ovals, not the kind of cookie cutter 1.5 ovals, mile ovals that we've become used to. I think all those things combined, it'll take over more than a couple of years to get all that done, but I think all of those things can help sway the balance of power.
All right, CJ, so I'm going to let you go. Thanks a lot once again for 2017, and we know that 2018, as far as our coverage, is going to be even better. So we'll just keep monitoring what's going on over there with these with this series, and hopefully if more fans and more media kind of keeps pushing them in the right direction, then hopefully eventually we'll get it to where they'll be at the kind of pinnacle that they're looking for, because they're nowhere near there, and yet we know it they can be. So I look forward to talking to you again in 2018 to make sure we put their feet to the fire again.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, CJ.
Have a good one.
All right, that's CJ Radoon. And again, you can follow CJ on his Twitter handle at CJ Radoon. And of course, his work as well was at rotowire.com. And Eric, before I let you go, have you ever actually written? I know I've talked to CJ before about, one of these days I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe I just need to figure out the time. Maybe it has to be during the time of year or who knows, maybe I got to go on vacation or something and do it. But I put together some sort of a these are the changes that need to be made in NASCAR, in order for it to be successful. You ever thought about, or have you ever written anything like that? Because I got to think there's just so many creative things that NASCAR can do that they're just not either taking advantage of for whatever, again, political or financial reasons, or whether or not maybe they're going to eventually do that. It just takes time.
Yeah, I have, and it was a while ago, and I can't even remember what year or when. But I did do something with kind of a NASCAR and IndyCar, and I even kind of ties Formula One into it, like kind of like an overall motorsport. How do we need to get everything back to normal? Because obviously this happens in every sport. All the ratings are dropping everywhere, and it seems like all the series are kind of working against each other. So I was going to write something kind of similar again to that here in this off season, especially now that Danica revealed her plans that she's going to run the Daytona 500 and Indy 500, about things that each series can do to help themselves in the future and change, as well as all of them kind of working together and cross promoting. Because I just see fans, like you have IndyCar fans bashing NASCAR, and I see that they're not watching it because it's not real racing and it's gimmicky. And then you see NASCAR fans chime in that they're not going to watch IndyCar, and who are these foreigners and who are these people? It's just like, hold on a second. Why are we working against each other? We're one motorsport community, and we need to gain all the fans we can get. And if we all team together and watch each other's races, the ratings would get higher, and then maybe you might like another series. And here, when you do that, here are the changes that I think each series could make. So I did that a few years ago. I'll have to try to dig that up and find out exactly what I wrote and maybe see if any of those changes have happened. And then also I'd like to take a look in the future, maybe something this off season about writing about things that I would like to see the series do. And obviously one of them would be, like I talked about at the beginning, is somehow trying to find a way that even though if you're going to have all 39, 40 drivers running in a race in the playoffs and half of them be eliminated from contention, at least make it. And it just seems weird to me. I just think that it always seems weird.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine in the, I guess, NFL, we'll talk about the juggernaut NFL, having a playoff system where the team loses, but it's like they show up the next round, and I'll just talk about the Colts. They're my hometown team, so I like them, even though they're not going to be anywhere close to the playoffs this year. But let's say they make it and they lose in the wild card round, but like all the players show up and play with like a Pittsburgh and New England game in the second round. And you got the Colts players out there playing too, and playing the same game. It's just weird.
No, yeah.
So,
I mean, even golf, at least, even in their playoffs, which is very similar, it's the most similar to NASCAR, that everybody who gets to participate in the final 30 players in the tour championship event has a chance to win the championship. Now, it may be some crazy mathematical way that they could win it, but they're there and they've got a shot. So that is kind of the thing that would make sense too, is maybe if we had 30 cars only to begin with, and then you get to these playoffs, and then you can start to dwindle it down a little bit. I mean, I know it'd probably be a little bit weird maybe to have 12 or 15 cars driving around instead of like 39 the way it is now. Maybe people just can't envision that. But maybe if you do pare it down to 30, then all of a sudden it gets a little bit more, okay, maybe I can see it go from like maybe, because we're only talking one race. And then maybe for one race, you give those 10 or 12 or 14 cars an equal opportunity, not an equal, but some sort of an opportunity to win a championship.
Yeah, I would like to see even you got on since it's the last race, winner take all anyways, I would almost I agree with you, 40 cars. Nobody can tell the difference between 30 and 40 cars when they're out there at that point, because half of, like you said, like the 10 to 15 of, you got field pullers that are basically skating around 7 laps down. Do we really need them out there?
It's dumb. No.
I would rather see I think they're onto something with these stages and playoff points. I think give it another year and we'll see how it works out. But I would almost like to see like a head-to-head bracket, maybe. Take your top 16 and seed them against each other and somehow have them go through each race. Would be like, so if you had Truex was the first seed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was a 16th seed, and in each round be like a best-of-3 series, and they just face head-to-head. And maybe that eliminates some of this weird drama if you know that person's just going against that person. Whereas in the final race, you maybe instead of having, and you get maybe extra monetary bonuses or something for winning for the guys that aren't in the playoffs, where somewhere like Kyle Larson had an extra incentive to go for the win, because I just thought that was really weird yesterday, just to see a guy that could beat them too, but what did he gain by beating them? If because he may have to wreck one. So that'd be one change I'd like to see, and maybe a few more night races, a few more. I would like to see a different start time sometime. Just there's some things I think they could definitely change. That that would be a good column to write.
And also, can we please figure out a way? I don't know when the contract's up, but I mean, again, I know that golf does it, but it's still different. And one of the reasons why I'm okay with golf is to have different networks is because their top people are all very good. I'm just as I'm just as fine listening to Nick Faldo as I am with Johnny Miller. But I'm sorry, but the NBC people are terrible. And to have the NBC people put together the final part of the season every season, be a part of the championship and the playoffs when they are the B team for production and hosts, I don't get it. I'm sorry. If you want to keep half and half, let NBC start the season. I know maybe Fox wants a Daytona 500. Don't you want the playoffs? I mean, the playoffs are supposed to be more important, aren't they? So I'd rather just see Fox own the whole thing, to tell you the truth. But if you're going to split it up, I'd rather see Fox in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would rather see. I like how at least when they do it, they have it flip-flopped rather than one race like it used to be you might see on CBS and the other one maybe on the old TNN network, or then you might move to ESPN. And I like how they have it half and half, but yeah, I agree. Maybe flip them, or maybe alternate them every year, kind of like they do the Super Bowl. How like 1 year it's on CBS, next year it's on Fox, then it's on and they get a different perspective. And I'd be okay if they would do Homestead that way, just maybe do a different perspective like that.
That's not bad. Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
and the other thing I thought too on those lines is and they've talked about it, Steve O'Donnell, and he's mentioned to me about it before, that kind of how golf and tennis, and they have your majors. You have like 4 majors. Well, NASCAR's trying to get that way, and I would like to see maybe all 4 be on the same network, because they're talking about maybe doubling the points, or the winner may get 100 points for this, and if you can win all the majors, you may get a $5 million bonus or something.
Sure.
So they're talking about maybe like Daytona 500, maybe the Coca-Cola 600, the Southern 500, and maybe the last race of the season be a major. So, but you would also probably want all 4 of those to be on the same network. I can't fathom why you would want to have them split between Fox and NBC, because then it just gets confusing to the fan that they just want to watch it because it's a good storyline. They're like, well, last race was on Fox. Why is it on NBC? I think that would get confusing to them. And
well, I will say this,
that'd
though.
Be another thing.
It's less confusing if it is NBC Fox as it is with NBC. What is their cable network called?
Oh, NBCSN.
Yeah, and then it's NBC, and then a lot of the races are on NBCSN. And it's,
yeah.
I mean, that really also confused. I mean, I would be less confused if it's just NBC Fox. NBC Fox. You want to switch just like golf does. All right. Sometimes it's on Fox. Sometimes it's on NBC, and sometimes it's on CBS. That's okay. I don't get confused by that. But it's constantly on the cable network all the time. I don't get that. I don't know what kind of, there's a reason for it, I'm sure. NBC wants to maybe build up that network. But I don't know. It's just, and at least I just think that they also got to do a better job. Look, if you're gonna keep this deal together, there's got to be some better analysts out there. There just has to be. It's not a very difficult job. I don't know why you don't give other guys an opportunity. They do it in other sports. I mean, look at football. They're always going to give it to the top team out of all the teams that cover the games. But it's just the same team every year. I don't see like major differences. I don't think. Look, Fox, you have Jeff Gordon now. That's great. Now NBC gets Dale Jr. Right? Is that what we're going to see?
Yeah, and they are still trying to work out where they're going to put him. I'd rather see them maybe find a different spot for Jeff Burton. Put Earnhardt in the booth with Steve Letarte, because that was his crew chief.
Okay.
And those two can work off of each other. I think that'd be great insight.
Okay.
I like what NBC did, and I'd like to see Fox incorporate this, and really across the board, wherein at the Watkins Glen weekend, because it's a road course and it's hard to see all the way around, they actually had turn announcers, and they treated it like a radio broadcast. So the booth would throw it to turn 1, and turn 1 would get you through the S's, and throw it back to turn 5.
Well, isn't that like the radio MRN? Isn't that similar to what they do?
I would like to see them maybe do that with Jeff Burton and maybe Parker Kligerman. I thought did a pretty good job. Maybe make them as a turn announcers, and you can add more insight because they're both drivers, so they may know what lines people are running and see things that none of us would see and commentate it that way. I think that would be good for him. I think Dale would be great in the booth. I'm curious what he's going to offer. But I do know NBC is also going to put him on like different broadcasts. There's talks of them wanting to put him in the on Olympic coverage,
what?
Which is as weird as that sounds.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, but that may interfere with Daytona, and I don't know if he's going to want to be out of the country. But they also said because of his love for the Redskins and football, and he's got a lot of NFL fans know who Dale Earnhardt Jr. is, and they're talked about incorporating him in some of the NFL broadcasts next year. Somehow, some way. I don't know where they're going to put him, but they said basically they're not just going to use him for NASCAR. They're going to use him across all channels where they could fit him. So
you could put Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the field.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
I think
I got no problem with that. Sure, you could put him on the football field. I
think he'd bring a different perspective as a guy that probably hasn't been to an NFL game in a while because he runs against the NFL most of the year, and then when the season's over, they probably take some downtime, and before you know it, the season's over. But he knows it's football, so he might bring a different aspect or angle that none of us could think of because he's been away from it. But yeah, I think he's going to be good. Everybody knows who his name is.
Oh, absolutely.
But which goes into what I've been writing about too, about NASCAR losing a name like that. Danica, they're losing her. NBC was want her on their broadcast. She said not right now. So I think NASCAR's got. It's just kind of funny to me that they're seeing these names. I think they see they've got a problem. You saw Gordon leave, and now he's in the booth. You see Junior leave, and he's in the booth. Danica's leaving, and they're wanting her in the booth. Tony Stewart's still owning the team. He's still around. They know that their problem is, look at all these iconic names that are leaving the sport, and they're trying to keep them, and of all places, on TV. It's like they're trying to keep their name in front of you, even they're walking away. So that'd be something interesting that's going to be to watch in the coming years, on what kind of roles you see Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Danica Patrick, even Tony Stewart, if he gets away from the owner side a little bit more, what kind of roles they put these people. Jimmy Johnson, as his career is about to come up soon. Where do they find these people and fit them in as far as their broadcast goes?
All right, Eric, thanks a lot for joining us this season. We're going to talk to you a bunch more before 2018 begins. We've got a lot to talk about, as the listeners can hear. So I'm looking forward to talking about all the different ways that we can improve the sport, and we'll find out whether NASCAR listens to us at all. So
absolutely.
Appreciate it, Eric. We'll keep looking over, though, at racereviewonline.com between now and then. But again, thanks for checking in with us for the first season. We'll see you again next season. Also, thanks to CJ Radoon for joining us once again, and Kenny Bruce from NASCAR.com here on the Prime Sports Network for the 2017 NASCAR Cup season. And 2018 will be here before you know it. So for CJ Radoon, for Eric Smith, and also for Kenny Bruce, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you sometime soon in between 2017 and 2018 right here on Prime Sports NASCAR on the Prime Sports Radio Network.